especially in my line of work, being in business development, I've come to realize that a lot of times it's not what I know, it's who I know. And there are people that have opened up doors, helped open up doors to me that I couldn't have by myself.
I relocated to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so in grad school, I launched a travel company. After I graduated, I moved to Grand Rapids and I immediately got involved in an accelerator and like the entrepreneur scene there and like literally threw myself out there.
And they don't ever take the time to recognize like how much work it comes into cultivating a safe space or a place where people can feel like they can be themselves. And so it comes down.
First of all, welcome, greetings and salutations. I appreciate everybody jumping into the Pancakes from Scratch podcast. I love to talk to good people doing great things. Today is no exception, except I do have three incredible people joining me today. Man, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in the space. So I don't even know where to start. Listen, so this podcast series in March, I was intentional in creating space to acknowledge and honor women who I revere, appreciate, and really admire in the context of the work that y'all do in the community. So I appreciate each of you taking time to be here. Let's start with Jhaelynn, who I met most recently. Just a brief introduction. Who are you and what's giving you energy this week?
Hello, my name is Jhaelynn Elam. Who am I? Well, I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio, currently residing in Minneapolis, and my background is in food science. So I have a bit of an interesting medley mix of experiences. So just training as a food scientist, I've worked at companies like General Mills, Nestle. General Mills is actually what brought me here to the Twin Cities. But currently, I've actually recently transitioned to philanthropy, where I work as the Director of Impact for the Black Collective Foundation here in Minnesota. Hey. But I'm also an entrepreneur, so I can share a little bit more there. But that's a little bit about me. And then what is giving me energy this week? It's not the weather because it's like dragging along, but I would say I'm excited about our brunch, actually. We're meeting tomorrow to talk a little bit more about our April brunch. And we recently met to just talk about some other things related to the brunch. So that's giving me energy.
Okay, cool. We just gonna breeze past that real quick, the brunch, and talk about it like it's a small thing until we get to it. Yeah, that's cool. Cierra, what about you?
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having us, Ern. It's an honor. So my name is Cierra Hardin. I also am a transplant. I relocated here to Minnesota to be 2 years, June 28th. And so I moved here for love, Sam, so I've been here. It's been fantastic. So as full-time, I work as a business development specialist for a minority-owned mid-sized business that's called New Access Innovation. So it's back in the DMV area. The business itself is a business to government kind of model. And so they provide IT solutions in the areas of mission program and platform integration, all things IT. So I do that. And then I also do some consulting work. So Sam and I stood up our own LLC last year that's called Gravity Consulting. And so I picked up my first client last year, and that too is a minority-owned small business called Booker Jamal. Gotta give them a shout out. Great folks over there, but they too focus in that agile-based kind of digital transformation for the federal government. So my whole career has been IT in the Fed, Civ, DoD space. And then outside of that, I just volunteer with my girls in Sisterhood Brunch. And I also serve on the board for Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health. So pretty busy, okay. But all of it's a blessing. So I'm excited to be here. And what's giving me energy, honestly, is getting through wedding planning, man. It's a job that I don't get paid for, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah. I think that's what's giving me energy this week, is making my way through that.
Dope. Well, congratulations. Wedding being on the way is it's an exciting season. It's also an exhausting season.
Oh,
So
yeah. Say it.
listen, more power to you as you keep that going.
Yes.
And last, certainly not least, we got the Miss Ward 7 herself. Okay, Cheniqua Johnson. Let the people know.
Oh Lord, no playing. My name is Cheniqua. Appreciate you. And it's been great to know you over the years, and really excited to be here with my girls. I had the privilege of meeting both of them through their loved ones, as well as just kind of building our own relationship now as women too, and as Black women at that. We are still a rare breed, and I'm just glad that some of our Black men know that. But I am a candidate for City Council over in Ward 7 on the east side of St. Paul. I work at the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation as well. For all my colleagues listening, there's a disclaimer of the fact that the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation does not endorse candidates. At the same time, I, in this capacity, founded in Sisterhood We Brunch with Amanda Kunjabahari, who's not with us, but genuinely, keeping her lifted in this space because she has relocated to Dallas. So I hope she's doing some great things there too. And in the community, I wear quite a few different hats, but I think one of the biggest ones and like one of the most important ones to me is I'm a proud sister to my brother and a daughter to my mom. We were born in, my brother and I were born and raised in Worthington, Minnesota. So I'm not a transplant, but I came to the Twin Cities, in 2013, just as a little kid that didn't know anything and started college. And so since then, it's been really great to, just kind of get better acquainted in the Twin Cities and to now be here joining you with these lovely women for this conversation.
It's a bet. I love it. I love it. What's giving you energy this week?
Nothing. I'm just playing. No, but I would say, one of the biggest things that's given me energy is like, that it's like deadline season for me. So we're in the middle of grant cycles. We're gearing up on the caucuses on the 19th. We're planning for the brunch series. Like it just feels like there's a lot of deadlines, which can be draining. So what actually gives me energy is shutting it all off and pretending like I don't have a deadline in the evening and going to sleep on time, which I think is super important. So I've just still been trying to do that. So I have like 8 hours, I track it. I'm getting my 8 hours of sleep. That's giving me energy because I wake back up and do it all over again.
Come on now. Listen, something's got to keep the machine going. I love it. That's what's up. So this whole concept of in Sisterhood We Brunch is something that for me, like took me by surprise. I'm like, well, what is this? Right? Just trying to figure out what's happening. And then I started seeing pictures and it was all these, I'm like, wait a minute, where did these people come from? Okay, so first I'm super curious, just where did the idea come from? But also like, where are y'all finding all these people? Like, I didn't know the Twin Cities was popping like that until I started seeing all these in Sisterhood We Brunch events going crazy.
Yeah, I will say I'll let Cierra also talk a little bit about, them D&B brunches, because it's important to understand that this is just not like another brunch. But the idea really started out of the pandemic at a time where women were not able to like gather in person. But at the same time, we were going through a lot. You had moms who are like in Sisterhood We Brunch literally has a bunch of people. We have entrepreneurs, we have business owners, we have people across sectors. We have moms, we have grandmas, we have aunties. It's a little bit of a family affair. But it started virtually. Like it was a Zoom call that we opened up for folks to come in and just really talk about what was going on. We had members that were actually being the ones arrested or during the, civil unrest of the murder of George Floyd. We also had people who were like, I'm not used to working at home. My kids are around me 24/7. Help me. And then we also have folks that like myself, like we're like watching a lot of things that were happening and it was just mentally and physically taking a toll on us. And so in that capacity, we had folks talk about, not being able to go to college in person. We had people talking about having their toddlers around and not being able to drop them off anywhere. And so in that system, like we just continued to open the space openly. We didn't have a budget. We weren't really an organization. We were genuinely a Zoom space. As the pandemic progressed, I felt like people just continued to do by way of personal invitation. They would come and like hear about the space. We'd open it up for like an hour and a half at that. And people would just like literally eat on the Zoom, talk on the Zoom. Um, Towards the end of the 2021 year, we started to get requests for folks about like, this would be really cool if it's in person. And we were like, yeah, let's do a little pop-up somewhere. And then the Delta variant and then other forms of pandemic of COVID-19. You're like, how many variants are there going to be? Because I feel like at this point we're at 29. I'm just trying to see who's going to come. Yeah. And then it just translated and took off with bringing in Jhaelynn and bringing in Cierra as well. We've really just been able to transform it. I'll kick it over to Cierra or Jhaelynn to talk a little bit about like where people come from, because I think they come from everywhere. But we've been here, and I feel like they're perfect examples of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about where I came from within Sisterhood Brunch. And so to Cheniqua's point, like the sisterhood itself is just simply invaluable. It's been such an experience, at least for me. So especially with being a transplant from DC. It was very important for me to get here and kind of build support friendships and kind of build this sense of belonging. And so Cheniqua and I connected through Instagram and through an event, I believe. And so she had invited me out to the first brunch back in March of last year, which was surrounded by celebrating women trailblazers. And I remember going to it and stepping into that space and just being in awe of the panel, the connections that I made, just the energy that just filled the room with just professional Black and brown women. It just left me speechless. And so I remember immediately leaving after the brunch, I DM'd Cheniqua, like, I love what's going on here. How can I help? Anything I can do, let me know. And so, in Sisterhood Brunch, the sisterhood, it just offers just a space for Black and brown women to kind of just feel understood, feel seen, in positive ways that kind of just encourages me specifically, but I know just from testimonies from other women to just try out new things and to kind of just explore identity beliefs and just really aid in professional development all around. And so, yeah, I it's beautiful. I grew up with a sister, and so she's my best friend, and, and now having like this expansion of that and these women, I'm just so just thankful and so blessed. And then, the sisterhood that I have just with Jay and Cheniqua too, it's just been a blessing. So that's kind of my story and how I got here. Where all the women are coming from, honestly, it's just a vibe. Honestly, the whole events, the brunches, they're just a vibe. And word of mouth travels and people just want to be a part of it. It's been beautiful. It's just been beautiful. Yeah.
So the vibe is undeniable.
It's undeniable.
Okay. So Jhaelynn, how did you get involved with what was going on?
Yeah, so similar to Cierra's timeline, I've been here for about 2 years. Next month actually will be my 2-year mark. And something about me, like I am someone, I've shared this with you two and like some other folks, like I've moved around quite a bit with just like career opportunities. So I've transplanted to about 8 different cities. And, I had that experience where you really understand how difficult it can be to navigate new spaces and how easy it is for like folks who are like native to that space or just like who are from that space stick to who they know. And so it's just really hard to penetrate socially when you relocate. So for me, it's something that's like just like really near and dear with just creating spaces for like a sense of belonging, because I felt alienated in spaces, and like it's just really easy to fall into that trap, which can be super isolating. So for me, when I relocated here from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I actually spent the most time in my career, which was 3 years, and I had built a community, and I was so sad when I had to leave, although I was ready to go because I was ready for something new, and Grand Rapids is kind of sleepy.
Yeah.
So I was ready to move, and I had this going away like party, and I was so sad to leave my people, but also like really excited about like moving and starting, new and like building a new community of people. And for me, I've been someone who over the years, like I've grown to be more social and, fortunately have met people pretty easily since moving here, including getting connected with Cheniqua And when she shared with me the vision for In Sisterhood We Brunch, and, when I connected with Amanda, like literally was exactly what, I had needed in these other like cities that I lived in. And so immediately was sold and getting involved and being a part of it. And so today, just seeing the growth, right? Like it's just proof that if you create it, people will come. We just need more folks to create these spaces, right? Like we need more people to get behind it. But like the people will come because you're truly solving a problem. And in cities like Minneapolis, like the Twin Cities, where you have these corporations, these big corporations, including General Mills, who recruited me, they're recruiting Black talent, right? Like this is the new hot thing to do since 2020. And so they have like the diversity thing down, right? Like they're getting us here, but the inclusion part is where we don't always see the same support. And so I love that we're solving that problem for women who have relocated here and who have been able to come into our space and make connections and meet people and like build that sense of belonging and like community.
Absolutely, man. I know for a fact that retention in the Twin Cities, especially for Black professionals, has been a huge problem that the cities have been working on for a long time, that different organizations have popped up to try and address. And like there have been a couple different initiatives that have done well to create some engaging social spaces. But what y'all got going on is different. It's different. It's a whole new level, and it's really exciting to see, specifically for the capacity to have an impact in a way that goes above and beyond potentially what we've seen historically in that area. So I just really want to make sure we take time to acknowledge the fact that y'all are definitely pioneering something that has the potential to have some extreme levels of impact on community out there. So kudos to you for the work that y'all are doing. And keep the vibe going, because that thing is incredible. I'm excited for what's to come for y'all for sure. I know that, I recently moved my family here to the greater Atlanta area. And especially for folks who moved during the pandemic, it has been a serious challenge to just engage with people and connect. We're in this age of physical distancing, which creates some social distancing. And as much as we can reach out to folks on LinkedIn and, have a Zoom meeting for conversation, it's not the same as getting together, breaking bread, and really building relationships in the way that you have really exemplified. So keep doing your thing. I'm excited about it. I'm super curious, though, about some of the challenges that each of you have faced that help to prepare you to be the type of person to engage in work like this. Like, what does it take for somebody to go through for you to be the one who says, let me step up and create the space that needs to exist? Look, okay, Cheniqua, I see. Okay, yep. See, the dimples is out. So Cheniqua got something to say. Go ahead.
Look, I was like, I'm ready. We ready. No, but for real, look, I think one of the biggest things is that you can grow up in this state and still not feel like you belong. And so for some of that coming in, that's something that isn't often talked about enough. We have seen, a lot of folks have a hard time sometimes even, fitting into when they're a transplant, when they have, they come in during the pandemic. And before that, we also, for those that are born and raised here, being aware that you were born and raised in a space where we have some of the largest economic, socioeconomic, and racial disparities, it's kind of like, now imagine that being your whole life. And so in that space, sometimes I think that can be really, for me, it has translated to like this aspect of sisterhood, right? I don't have a sister. I have a brother, and I have like an older sister, but like much, much older than me. So like my immediate sisterhoods or people around me, my peer groups, sometimes for me, that was hard. It was hard finding connections with women that looked like me. And in some places we were in spaces where it felt like we were in competition and not actually trying to build relationships across the board. At least from my perspective, that was some of my experience when I went to the University of Minnesota. And so like, I'm, as someone who's not a part of any of like multiple girl groups, women organizations that were from the University of Minnesota, And that included like sororities and other things as well. Like for me, that was not my space. I was a part of the Black Student Union and other communities, but it was challenging at times to find spaces where I felt like I belonged. And that was even from coming in and knowing as many people as I do to now like seeing that translate to this space where I've never walked into this space feeling uncomfortable. And I think that's a real intentional space, you know, and yes, we're like planning, but even then, like I don't get a lot of jitters. I don't really get nervous when I'm talking with these ladies. Like I can actually emphasize and laugh and just be me with Jhaelynn and Cierra in a way that I probably have never experienced. And in a group of like Black women, for me, this has been a new experience for me. Like it's been not competitive. You never feel like you're leveling up for someone. And I feel like in Minnesota, we perpetuate that a lot because there's always just like one Black girl, one Indigenous girl, one Latino, like, and never, you know, one Asian American and never like multiple. And we bring 150 to 200 women at a time.
Stop playing with me. Okay. All right. Fine. Listen. Okay, because everybody saw the flex, right? It wasn't just me. Okay, everybody seen the flex. All right. I appreciate it. Jhaelynn, why don't you jump in? Because I'm also curious not only about the challenges that you've had to face, but also like what drives the courage that it takes to show up with authenticity when you're brand new in a new community?
That's a good question. So when I think about authenticity and then you mentioned like challenges, I think about like the reality that like it is really one of the hardest things to be sometimes is yourself. Like one of the hardest things is to like be yourself, to genuinely show up as yourself, especially when you know, there are expectations around like how Black women show up in corporate spaces, right? For example, like what does that look like? What should other people feel like in these spaces? And so for me, I think that like I've just grown over the years to be more comfortable like with myself. I really accredit like probably somewhere between like 18 to like 23, like those years for like that like level of like confidence and comfort. And when I think about even, so I went to Tuskegee. So I went to an HBCU for undergrad.
Okay.
And yes, proud Tuskegee grad, proud Tuskegee grad. But like seriously, like that space, like being able to see like on a consistent basis, like that level of community, right? Of like Black folks and like the confidence and like what that does to you and like how you see yourself. Like that is why I am who I am, having experiences like that, like being cultivated in that way. And so I feel like it's just my job to carry through with that, you know, to like continue to build on that and to like create safe spaces for like other women to feel that, right? And like one of the best compliments I've ever received, probably, okay, like two, I'm thinking about Cheniqua and Cierra. Like they have given me like some of the best compliments I've ever received. But Cierra mentioned something about like having a warm like energy or like spirit, right? About me. And that's super intentional because I want other people to feel like they can show up like as themselves, you know, like just authentically. And so I try to carry that throughout my experiences here in the Twin Cities. And, you know, I know that me being who I am is what's gotten me, you know, where I am today. And so like just letting that lead me and like bringing that with me and into new spaces and at new tables and like, you know, contributing in that way, right? I feel like that's something that's just really powerful.
That's heavy, man. I think people fail to realize the value that an HBCU experience brings. And for folks who, you know, either didn't get to college, didn't go to college, or you know, went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, you know, we get lost in the idea that it's just, you know, marching bands and swag surfing. And we miss the reality of the fact that, man, you create a community around what that experience looks and feels like. I had somebody, a good friend of mine went to an Ivy League school, and they were telling me like, yeah, when I went to this school, there was a lot of conversation around how the networking was going to really help elevate my career. But then I saw people in the same spaces who had gone to HBCUs, and you start to realize that the dynamic of the relationships that are built at an HBCU have a pretty significant impact. And you contrast that with what folks get when they go to a Harvard or Yale or Columbia, what have you. Not the same. It's not the same energy. It's not the same type of love. And so we really have to acknowledge the opportunity that exists and go into an HBCU institution. So that's heavy. I appreciate you calling that out. Now, Cierra, we heard you talk about the fact that you came to the Twin Cities for love. Okay, now that sounds like a TV show. Let me syndicate that. Love and we're gonna have to come up with a nickname. Okay, we're gonna listen.
Yeah.
Come up with a show title. We'll
Gotcha.
talk about how we gonna put that together.
Okay.
At the end of the day, what I'm curious about is like, does that ease the transition coming into a new space? Are the challenges still the same? How are they different?
I think for me, because who I'm engaged to, it did ease the transition here. Like I had mentioned, it was very important for me to build a network for my own here, to kind of, like I said, kind of get this sense of belonging. But I have to admit, Sam and Deli is very plugged in. And so it did kind of help me out, get into the spaces that I'm in now. But one of the things that I shared with Sam before I even moved here was still kind of exploring my own like individuality. And when it comes to what, I'm doing now with, the ladies here within Sisterhood Brunch, I have to say that, this is new for me. Community building, it's just full transparency. It's it's new for me. Thanks, Cheniqua. It's new for me. And just a little bit of background. I think the challenge to your question, you're talking about one of the challenges I had to overcome was kind of mastering my mind. I grew up and had kind of this, had to overcome self-doubt, anxiety, overall fear of failure. I think a lot of us do. But, I credit that to kind of this self-discovery that took place back in 2016. I'm a huge advocate for mental health awareness. And so I plugged in with my first therapist back in 2016 and started to peel back those layers of my psyche. And I revealed it, doing that kind of revealed to me I was kind of functioning in this fixed mindset, right? So avoiding challenges of, having this desire to look smart in areas and just essentially just kind of again, fixed mindset, just one way or one dimension there thinking. So after peeling back the layers and working with my therapist, I've kind of shifted more into a growth mindset. And so pushing through the fears of learning new things and kind of accepting failure as kind of an opportunity to grow. And so I think that and doing that work prior to meeting the ladies here, because I have to be honest with you, although the space was beautiful and I really appreciated the first brunch I attended, had I not done my own personal work, I don't know if I would have reached out to the girls. I don't know if I would have felt comfortable standing in front of, like Cheniqua said, 150, 200 women and speaking about my own experiences and my own testimony. I don't know. And so I think that it's really important to kind of do that self-work and kind of try to remove those blockers that you may have had, in your unconscious and bringing kind of that unconscious to your conscious, right? And just tackling those things that may be barriers to your growth. So yeah, that's kind of my experience so far.
Okay. Listen, you were early in the wave. Think of the mental health game. Because like real talk, in 2020, I think there was a big push for mental health awareness.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that's when I picked up a therapist. I was like, I ain't got it. I need help. Got to talk to somebody. But for you to like have that awareness back in 2016, we talking years before folks collectively, right, before our community was really invested in the idea of taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally. I think that speaks to character. I think that speaks to some level of self-awareness that has to already exist
Right.
in order for you to be willing to step in to that path and take that direction without there being a wave behind you encouraging that type of choice. So shout out to you for making that move. That's really, really big. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So the next piece I want to get into is about gratitude. I think as professionals, we step into these spaces and we get these opportunities and create these things. And like, as we move through growth and professional development and all of that, there are moments that stick out in life that we have a different level of gratitude for. Is there a moment for one of you that sticks out like, man, if it wasn't for this professional experience, I probably wouldn't be who I am?
You know, I would say like for me, I guess like taking an opportunity to just plug some of the uniqueness that is within the team. Watching Jhaelynn's like eye for detail, or like picking up on things that people miss or don't have time to do, but that really just kind of shows you the full weight of like what it means to event plan. Like I think people really just like don't take enough time to do that. So they put together this space and they slap it all together and they're like, why didn't anyone show up on the 24th floor of this corporate building that we are now meeting in? And they don't ever take the time to recognize like how much work it comes into cultivating a safe space or a place where people can feel like they can be themselves. And so it comes down to like the vendors that we work with. It comes down to like asking each other multiple times, like, what do you think about this name of the event? It comes down to like the detail, the social media spaces, all of that is like all works together to maintain what we do. And it all matters. It's like all a part of it. And so I don't know if it's like necessarily that moment where I'm like, oh, I wouldn't be who I am today, because I think, no, I don't. I hope people don't necessarily get just defined by one thing, because you can learn a lot through experiences. But I would definitely say for me, I have a newfound respect for any event planner or like people planning things, and know that sometimes if you go the extra mile, like my birthday parties look different now that I'm a part of Insist Heavy Brunch. Like my venues and like the places that I just think about, even when it comes to, you know, my future wedding or my future engagement, all of those things, I'm like, these are things where I just think that sometimes people take for granted. Like you come in, you want to eat a good meal. You don't recognize how much that meal costs. You don't recognize how much like effort and time go into like cultivating a team, even of 3 people, let alone like onboarding volunteers and things that come afterwards. And so I guess I just have a lot of respect for my colleagues and people that are attending. But yeah, event planners, don't sleep on them. Do not hire your friend and expect them to do something. It's like, no, do not sleep on the event planners, because it is a lot. Details are a lot.
Okay. I love it. I love it.
I'll jump in. So professional experience and like gratitude, right?
Yeah.
So I already mentioned my HBCU experience. Very grateful for Tuskegee. I attribute my confidence, just as a Black woman, to a lot of that experience. And I think outside of that, so after I finished up grad school, I relocated to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so in grad school, I launched a travel company. After I graduated, I moved to Grand Rapids and I immediately got involved in an accelerator and like the entrepreneur scene there, and like literally threw myself out there. Literally went and pitched an idea like within 2 months, bombed it, but that's not the point. Like what?
Hey, did it though. Did it though.
I did it, and that really pushed me, you know, and like the whole 3 years there really pushed me to think outside of the box, to push boundaries, right? Like growing up, I can like attest to, you know, growing up in an environment where when I looked around, I didn't see what I wanted, period. Right. And so when you don't see what you want and there's not a blueprint, you figure things out. Right. And so stepping outside of that comfort zone, into new spaces, into new networks, you know, like trying new things, meeting new people, all of that has made me who I am today. And like, you know, just continues to like just motivate me as I like create spaces as well. And so I'd say like some of those things are like really like some of the gratitude I have and just making me who I am today.
That's what's up. What about you, Sierra?
I think over the course of my life, what I'm grateful for is kind of just the relationships that I've built over the years. You know, I'd like to believe I'm an extrovert, and so I don't think I've ever met a stranger. I get that from my dad, and I just actually growing up, I was a kid that got the bad remarks on the report card for talking too much, and it's so crazy how you get reprimanded for talking. And so I got in trouble a lot now that I think about it for talking too much. But I'm grateful that I haven't I haven't gotten rid of that, just not being this, just being okay with just talking to folks. And so I credit a lot of where I've been into the importance of my relationships, just treating people well, especially in my line of work, being in business development. I've come to realize that a lot of times it's not what I know, it's who I know. And there are people that have helped open up doors to me that I couldn't have by myself. And so just kind of tying this back into In Sisterhood with Brunch, I mean, we're building relationships, and this is going to, the places that this will take us. I just can't even imagine it. And so I'm just grateful for, again, just the relationships that I've been able to build and the connections that I've had that have made all the difference in where I've been and where I plan to go. And I'm just making sure treating people well and sowing seeds.
That's it. I love it, man. This is y'all. Yeah. Okay. Listen, y'all are doing some really, really good stuff. And my heart is warmed by it. And I just have a ton of appreciation for the type of space that you're creating. The In Sisterhood We Brunch concept, it echoes back to me like what I'm trying to do with this whole pancake from scratch thing. This idea is really started around the intersection between like food, culture, and ambition, right? And I'm still working this stuff out in my head, but there's something to be said about how our culture functions and how food plays a part in that, right? And not just like what we eat, but how we break bread together, how we commune, and then culture impacts ambition in the context of like what we strive for based on what we get exposure to and how we connect and engage with one another. So there's something there. Like I'm still trying to process and understand exactly what it is, but with each of these conversations, I usually get something new. I'm super curious for y'all. What's your favorite food? What y'all like to eat? You got a whole In Sisterhood We Brunch. I know we got some foodies that can speak to some. What y'all eating?
That is a hard question. Yeah, just because the reason I went into food science was because I wanted to like make food, and I love food. So I always have a hard time answering that question these days. I would say like a cuisine. Like I really like Ethiopian food.
Okay.
I like Ethiopian food. Yeah, and what I've learned culturally about like African food and how communal it is, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to Fasika in St. Paul. If you ain't hit them up, do that.
I have not.
I can go. So if you would have asked me this question pre-Sam, my favorite food would have been either mac and cheese or catfish. Okay. I mean, it's still my favorite. Okay, don't get me wrong, it's still my favorite. But if I had to choose, like, it's something I could eat every day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, hear me out. It's agusi and fufu. It's a Cameroonian dish. And the only reason I don't dip the fufu with my fingers is because my nails, okay? My nails are good. I don't want to be doing that. But they give me a hard time for it. But agusi and fufu, listen, Sam can tell you I'll eat it for breakfast, lunch, dinner. It doesn't matter. I love it.
Not a game. I appreciate it. Listen, first of all, y'all need to save me some puff puff. All right. So Sam, I ain't forgot. Like he act like his mom made puff puff one time. That's all it took. It only took one time. I'm at his head. I need my puff.
I got you.
Yeah, I would say I'm a Mexican food person. I love like Mexican food, any type. That's actually something I don't get tired of. You underestimate the power of nachos. I'm telling you. No, but I literally am here, and I'm not talking about like I know some people have done the like shredded cheese or something. I'm not talking about that. If the cheese is not melted, I'm not eating it. It's not nachos. At that point, it's a salad. Like I don't know. But I love Mexican food, and recently it's been like samosas or sambusas, depending on where you go. Like I just really like it, and I'm not really a lot of big like meat person when it comes to like big chunks. I have a problem with like I don't eat a lot of steaks and stuff like that. It's not my thing. Meatloaf, none of that. But samosas or sambusas usually have like a lot of ground beef in them, but they're really good. Like the right spices is pretty cool. So
they put it together. What's interesting about it is like it's usually not just the food that we end up talking about. Like when you think about your favorite food, it's like, yeah, the food tastes good, but it's also like, what's the experience when the food is being prepared? What is it like when we're sharing a meal together? What is it like? The whole experience. It's not just what I'm eating. It's the whole thing, right? Like when you say catfish and mac and cheese, I know you're not just talking about the food. You're talking about a whole thing. So I gotta do some more research. You know, I'm gonna go back into the market and we can see what we can see, but it's something there. We're gonna figure out what that is. But listen, I appreciate y'all doing what you do. I appreciate you making time to be here, share some time with me, and shed some light, some insight, and perspective for folks to learn from this conversation. Thank you all very much for the whole In Sisterhood We Brunch concept and leaning into that and continue to sort of drive that thing forward because it is very, very much needed, not just where you are, but anywhere people need to come together. So y'all keep doing your thing and know that it's very much appreciated. All right.
Thank you. And, really appreciate the time, especially with the space. And we think we'd all be remiss if we didn't show or didn't tell people how to find out more information about us.
Yes, absolutely.
So shameless plug, insisterhoodwebrunch.com, Instagram and Facebook, In Sisterhood We Brunch. People can go in and, look in. We have a save the day out for April 15th of this year, followed by June 3rd of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Man, okay. Listen, y'all not playing. We doing this for real. I love it. All right. Well, Cheniqua, Cierra, Jhaelynn, great spending time with you all. I know we got some hard stops, so y'all have a great day. Keep doing big things, and we'll talk soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yeah.